morning, everybody. Welcome to the Oasis. We are a community grounded in reason, celebrating the human experience. My name is TC. Glad to be here this morning. I'm glad to see so many of you, despite the weather and the marathon road closures and other obstacles that you have overcome to be here. We appreciate that. I want to introduce our musical guest to sort of get our brains going. He's a really nice guy. Found him at an open mic that he used to host at a place called the Cellar Door in Katy. And he's a real talented musician. He's going to play a couple songs. We're going to hear from one of our local speakers, and then Geoff's going to play a couple more. And if we're really lucky, he'll stick to the end and maybe play us one on the way out. Yeah, he'll take us out. I'd like you to put your hands together for Mr. Gabe Montoya.
Thank you. How's everybody doing?
Good.
You guys awake?
No.
No, I'm not either. All right. This is a good song. Actually, I love the song, so I'm going to play it. Those 80s tunes. This next song, I thought Chevy Chase sung it. You'll see where I'm coming from. Why am I soft blue now? Why am I soft blue now? Rest of my life is so wide. I need a photo opportunity. I want to shop redemption. Don't want to be a cartoon graveyard. Bone digger, dogs in the moonlight, far away from my belly door. Mr. Beer Belly, get these mutts away, you know. I don't find this stuff amusing anymore. If you be my bodyguard, then I can be your long lost pal. I can call you Betty, Betty, when you call me, you can call me out. A man walks down the street, says, why am I short of attention? Got a short little span of attention. Wore my nights so long, where's my wife and family? What if I die here? Who'll be my role model? Now that my role model is gone. He ducked back down the alley with some roly-poly little bat-faced girl. All along and along there were incidents and accidents, there were hints and allegations. If you be my bodyguard, then I can be your long lost pal. I can call you Betty, Betty, when you call me, you can call me out. Call me out, na 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 na. Down the street, straight in a strange world. Maybe it's the third world, maybe it's his first time around. Doesn't speak the language, he holds no currency. He is a foreign man, he is surrounded by the sound of cattle of the marketplace, scatterlings and orphanages. He looks around and around, he sees angels in the architecture, spinning in infinity, says, amen, hallelujah. If you be my bodyguard, then I can be your long lost pal. I can call you Betty, Betty, when you call me, you can call me out. Call me out, na 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 na.
Welcome everybody. This is the point in our weekly gathering where we do something called a community moment, where someone from our community comes up and shares maybe something about their journey or a thought to ponder about the world or life or whatever. And today's community moment is going to be done by me. Mainly because I'm not speaking today, so I'm already going into withdrawal, and I got to just have some time in front of the mic so I can get through the week. But no, I'm just going to give you a quick thought for the day. It's a passage from a book by a psychologist named Jonathan Haidt. He wrote a best-selling book called The Happiness Hypothesis, and it was really in the middle of reading The Happiness Hypothesis. I was actually doing research on a sermon series for happiness. I was just getting these books where I first stumbled across the term evolutionary psychology. I thought, well, that's interesting. And so I started reading in evolutionary psychology, which led to reading in kind of behavioral genetics and cognitive neuroscience, and which started the whole unraveling of my metaphysical world. And so it was really this book that I'm going to read a passage from that kind of got that going for me. And I was just flipping through the book again the other day just to refresh my memory on a few passages. And I stumbled across this one I just thought was profound and would make just a little nugget to chew on, to think about. This is Jonathan Haidt writing in the book from page 76. The Happiness Hypothesis. In philosophy classes, I often came across the idea that the world is an illusion. I never really knew what that meant, although it sounded deep. But after 2 decades of studying moral psychology, I think I finally get it. The anthropologist Clifford Geertz wrote that, quote, "Man is an animal suspended in webs of significance that he himself has spun." That is, the world we live in is not really one made of rocks and trees and physical objects. It is a world of insults, opportunities, status symbols, betrayals, saints and sinners. All these are human creations, which, though real in their own way, are not real in the way that rocks and trees are real. These human creations are like fairies in J.M. Barrie's Peter Pan. They exist only if you believe in them. They are the Matrix from the movie of that name. They are a consensual hallucination. And that really struck me. Just to make it clear, he doesn't really believe we're living in the Matrix. That's not what he's saying. But just that thought that, yeah, everything that we put so much stock into, insults, opportunities, status symbols, betrayals, saints, and sinners, are ultimately all a consensual hallucination. Just something to think about. I'd like to unpack that someday. And you can chew on it and tell me what you think. That's our thought for the day. Here ends the lesson. Gabe, can you do us another song before our mix and mingle time?
Thank you guys for letting me play your stuff. Appreciate it. He wakes up in the morning, does his teeth bite to eat, and he's rolling. He never changes a thing. The week ends, the week begins. She thinks we look at each other, wondering what the other is thinking, but we never say a thing. And these crimes between us grow deeper. Take these chances and place them in a box until a quieter time lights down you up and die. Goes to visit his mommy. She leads him well, his concerns he forgets them and remembers being small, laying under the table and dreaming. Take these chances and place them in a box until a quieter time lights down you up and die. Driving in this highway, cars end up on the sidewalk, people in every direction. No words exchanged, no time to exchange, and all the little reds are marching, red and black antenna waving. They all do it the same. They all do it the same way. Candyman tempting my thoughts of a sweet tooth, tortured by weight loss. Programmer cutting the corner, there's a loose end, cut on the fence, cannot to offend. Cut. Take these chances and place them in a box until a quieter time lights down you up and die.
actually our first ever featured guest speaker at Houston Oasis. And I'm going to read a little quick bio on Geoff. Geoff Berg is a trial lawyer, radio talk show host, political pundit, and marinara-loving Jewish pastafarian. He appears regularly on Fox 26, blogs for the Houston Chronicle. Geoff has been active in Democratic politics since he went door to door for Jimmy Carter in 1976 at the age of 7. Although we are trying to get 501c3 status, I should have made that nonpartisan. But anyway, although considering what became of the Carter administration, he is happy to reveal that the canvassing was an act of coercion by his parents. Geoff has appeared on The Today Show, CNN, on national radio shows. He hosts Partisan Gridlock with Geoff Berg on KPFT in Houston. That's 90.1 on your FM dial. Friday afternoons at 3, is that right? Yeah. It's a wonderful show. It's one of my favorite things to listen to on the radio, so I'm just super excited to welcome Geoff here today. He also works for Clear Channel's progressive station in Denver, which is heard throughout Colorado and the Intermountain West. So at this time, let's put our hands together and give a warm Houston Oasis welcome to Geoff Berg.
Very, very kind and well-written introduction. So I understand that the Houston Oasis is sort of I don't want to say remnant because I think that has sort of a negative connotation, but the core, I guess, is formed by a former church. And so I wanted to do my part in helping, I guess, de-spiritualize what's left of the congregation by being the first person to use the word fuck. Then I saw that TC does the introductions, and I figured that I probably was not maybe beaten to the punch on that. I'm very grateful to you for having me here, Mike and TC, and all of you for inviting me. I'm really thrilled to be here, and I want to. There are a couple things I want to talk about, but really, I mean, if you've ever, don't be offended. Let me do a little market survey. Who's heard the show on KPFT? It's called Partisan Gridlock. Okay, good. All right, well, so for those of you who haven't, it's mostly a political talk show, though I certainly do a lot of free thought, atheist type of discussion. And in fact, I think that I approach politics from a free thinker's perspective. Just to give you an example, I guess, that's set to be later on in the discussion, but I think is appropriate now. I have no dog in the climate change fight, right? I am not a climate scientist. I don't own any oil companies. I don't have a well. And so I'm interested only in what the truth is, as best as we can know it. And here's what the truth is, as best that we can determine, what we can determine as of now. There was a study that was done in 2010. And this was a survey of scientists, you know, the people who actually know about this stuff, scientists. And what it found was that 97% agree that climate change is real and is man-made. That's what the survey found. Now the 3% that disagreed, these are scientists who disagree. The 3% who disagreed were found by the study. Again, this is just data. This is not prognostication, it's not punditry, this is what the survey is. Their average expertise is far below that of their colleagues, as measured by publication and citation rates. So, this is how I approach politics. When Al Gore says there is a scientific consensus on climate change, he's not talking out of his ass. There is data here. There is science to support that. Now, the reason I go through all of this is to say I'm a progressive. And you can be a free thinker and be a hardcore right-wing Republican. It doesn't matter. You can be an atheist and be a fascist. You can be an atheist and be a communist. It is probably unlikely that you are, but it is possible. And so all of that is by way of sort of introduction to say that though I am a progressive, I leave open the possibility that there are free thinkers who may be correct in their more conservative views, but you're not going to hear those from me. So all of that is really by way of background and by introduction. Really what I wanted to talk about is really reflected in that climate change example. The world as it is, rather than as we wish it to be. Facts as they are, accepting reality as it presents itself, rather than as we would hope that it would be. And I'm going to make this fairly brief because I really prefer to do as much discussion as possible, Q&A, suggestion, not just Q and statements. It's okay. I don't mind if you want to, tell me what an idiot I am. I hear it plenty every Friday. I hear it, so not a problem. I think that what atheists do best is accept the material world as it is, rather than falling back on what might be more comforting to believe about it. And I'm going to give you an example. I'll give you a personal example, and then I'll get into a couple of different topics, and then we'll go to Q&A. This was happened recently. It's an absolutely true story. I am fairly recently divorced. Make that. Hope there are no Catholics in the audience. My ex-wife and I are extremely close, perfectly amicable. We share custody of our dog, who is amazing, by the way. All of you think you have the best dog in the world. We have an amazing dog. He's called a Dogo Argentino, and he was a rescue puppy that she brought into the relationship. And anyway, we share him now. He's getting a little bit older. He's approaching his 9th birthday. He's a very large dog, and bigger dogs have shorter lifespans. That's, again, possibly because of a lack of prayer, but might have more to do with evolution. I'm not a scientist, as I said. And as he's getting older, he's having some sort of expected health issues, nothing awfully serious, but it reminds us of his mortality. And that, I don't know, if you're a pet owner, I don't have to tell you how attached you get to your pets. And she and I are both very close with him. And I was doing a little bit of research, reading about this particular breed and life expectancy. And I found what seemed to me to be a fairly authoritative website, had a lot of contributions from veterinarians and zoologists and others who are sort of familiar with the field. And I got all excited because I saw this website that said, yeah, incredible, Dogo Argentino life expectancy, 10 to 20 years. And I thought, that's wonderful. And that's actually a huge relief as he approaches his 9th birthday, that he may have another 11 years to go, and it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility. And so I emailed it to her. She and I had been discussing how sad it would be if he died. And of course, inevitably he will, but we, like everybody else, want to make that as distant event as possible. So I emailed it to her, and aside from the fact that it turns out I'm an idiot, this had some meaning, because she clicked on the link and she read the site. She's not an idiot, and said, Geoff, that's 10 to 12 years, not 10 to 20 years. And I have looked at that website. I've actually read books. I write for the Chronicle occasionally, and so I'm not unfamiliar with the difference between 12 and 20. But what it pointed out to me was there is this human instinct, this human need for things to not be as they are sometimes. I wanted that number to be 20. I didn't want it to be 12. But I saw it right there on the page. And I could not, I knew that the number was 12 somewhere. But I really believed it was 20. And I looked at it and looked at it. When she sent it back, I looked at it again. I thought, wow, how could I have done that? This is, I think, part of what drives people to become religious. Aside from their upbringing, maybe it's part of what causes them to continue to feel a need for religious belief. It is that the natural world is not enough. And it's not enough for people who are philosophical sometimes, if you want to find some deeper meaning. But there are, of course, those of us, and I believe probably a majority of those in this room, who believe that your life is what you make of it, not that there's some celestial person who decides that for you. The evidence, of course, is on our side. And that's why those on the other side, and I do see things, I'm sorry to say, I know that there are probably people here who don't, but I do see things as, in this case, us versus them. Because we live in a society in which them, those people who believe so strongly in their religious faith that it drives them to push for public policy that is harmful not necessarily just to us, but to our society. And in dealing with us versus them, there is not just a difference of opinion about what should be done, but about what is in the first place. This is the difference between reality as it is and reality as we wish it to be. And there is a beautiful example, depending, of course, on your definition of the word beautiful. Dick Morris. Everybody know who Dick Morris is?
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Right, toe-sucking political pundit. Right, this is a guy, he's not an idiot. See, that's the thing, someone said he's an idiot. It's a perfectly normal, natural response to think Dick Morris is an idiot. He's not. He's a genius. Dick Morris knows that there is an audience for what he sells. And what he sells is untruth that comforts those who want desperately to believe it. If you recall, during this most recent election, all of the data, the science, showed that President Obama was very likely to be reelected. Was it a certainty? No, of course not. But it was very likely, much more likely than not. There was no contrary data. No real, credible contrary data. The contrary data that existed was from non-scientists who believed that the science was weighted against them. They believed that the polls were lies created by the liberal media in order to trick them and suppress them and harm them. And Dick Morris knew that. And he would go on Fox News and say that Mitt Romney was headed for a landslide. I mean, this is a man who's been in politics his entire adult life, who worked at the highest levels of government during the Clinton administration, until he was forced out by the prostitute toe-sucking incident. For brevity, I guess. And this is what he was selling. Now, did he know that it was false? I think he probably did. I think he's a fraud. I think he's a complete fraud. And the question is not whether frauds exist. Of course frauds exist. I mean, like Joseph Smith founded an entire religion. He was a convicted fraud. Dick Morris knows his audience. His audience are people who do not want to question what they want to hear, because they want to hear that reality is as they want it to be, rather than as it is. In 2004, I didn't want to believe that John Kerry was likely to lose. It was a much closer election, but I knew he was likely to lose. It's the same with climate science we discussed at the beginning. I don't have a dog in that fight. I want the world to survive, I want the environment to survive. If the science said, burn all the fossil fuel you want without consequence, great. Burn all the fossil fuel you want. Okay, if that means the oil companies get rich, so be it. I don't have a dog in that fight. I'm not going to resist information that I don't want to hear just because I don't want to hear it. That is what religion demands. That's what religion requires of you. And that's why in the political sphere, you've got this vast number of people who will shut out any amount of science, no matter how credible, no matter how real, no matter how patently obvious to anyone willing to view it. And ultimately, I think that that harms them, but in the short term, and maybe even the near long term, it's going to harm all of us, as it has. Let me give you one other. How am I doing on time?
We're doing fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to go on too long. I want to start a discussion. But who remembers 1996? Bill Clinton made an announcement, scientific discovery, that was, I remember this like it was yesterday, it was so exciting. Life had been found in a meteorite that had come from Mars. And this was, if true, one of, if not the biggest discoveries in the history of science, because really, space exploration is about answering whether we're alone. Is this vast universe devoid of any life at all, microbial, intelligent, Tea Party, whatever, except for us? That's what, and to have discovered that life developed separately on two different worlds is the discovery that science wants. And those of us who are not scientists want. But we want it, of course, to be real. I mean, we want it to be peer-reviewed and studied and known. And Bill Clinton made this announcement. Now, again, this was the sort of the drama of the whole announcement was later walked back because there was some doubt about whether the science was good. I don't want that to be the case. I want it to be true that life was discovered living in a meteorite that had come from Mars, developing separately from our planet, knowing for the first time that life is ubiquitous. Then this vast universe, we're not it, that there's more. Okay, I gotta go with the scientists. I don't want it to be the case, but that happens to be the case. If you go online now and you read about the Mars rock, it's Allen Hills 0084 or something like that. It's this rock that was found in Antarctica. And scientists announced, Bill Clinton announced in 1996 that they had discovered microbial life that they believed originated in Mars. So, do you remember how you felt? Those of you that remember, do you remember how you felt hearing that for the first time? It's astonishing. I mean, the discussion, the national, international discussion that we had about who we are, what it meant for us, that there was, in fact, when we believed it was certain, that there had been a discovery that established that life existed elsewhere in the universe, philosophically, morally, and of course spiritually, what it meant for everyone to know, not to believe, but to know that it existed. It changed the outlook, many people's outlook. There's one person whose outlook it didn't change. At least one. I don't want to say one, I certainly wouldn't want to limit it. You remember what Jerry Falwell's response was? This is what Jerry Falwell said in 1996 after Bill Clinton held a news conference in the Rose Garden. By the way, if you go and watch, who's seen the movie Contact? Read the book, Carl Sagan book, great book, terrific movie. They cut in Bill Clinton's Rose Garden news conference into that movie because he comes out of the Rose Garden and says, extraterrestrial life has been discovered. And that's what the movie is about what our human response is to knowing that. So, very famous news conference, holds it in the Rose Garden. Jerry Falwell says, should I do the accent? I don't want to do the accent. they can spend, no, I can't. I'm not. They can spend $1 trillion looking for intelligent life, but they'll never find it. The Bible makes clear that Jesus Christ is the only mediator between God and man, that his work on earth was entirely for the children of Adam and Eve. Now, is that reality as it is, or is that reality as Jerry Falwell and the people who believed what that troglodyte had to say during his brief and unpleasant visit to our world wanted? And did it serve his own personal interest? Now, did he actually believe this? Maybe. But he certainly knew that the people that listened to him believed it. That regardless of what science tells you what reality is, it doesn't matter. Whatever we see, don't believe your lying eyes. Don't believe these biased liberal communist scientists. Don't believe them, because the Bible says we're never going to find it. We could be invaded tomorrow by intergalactic warriors from Kolob, from Mitt Romney's home planet. And Jerry Falwell would be, and his likes, not him now, unless we witness a real opposite of a miracle and he shows up again, saying it's not happening. Because the Bible says it can. This is reality as it is versus reality as we, and these are our opponents. These are my opponents. I hope they're yours. Back to climate science for 1 second, and then I'd like to open it up. You ever heard of an organization called the Cornwall Alliance? This is unfamiliar to many people, but not an insignificant organization. Cornwall Alliance has as one of its employees a PhD named Calvin Besner, who I don't say that he's a PhD without reason. He promotes himself in any event as a scientist. Certainly has the PhD after his name. And in the wake of all of this climate, I should be saying client, said I was a trial lawyer. I am a trial lawyer. I deal with clients a lot more than climates. So anyway, this PhD, yeah, it was worse. Calvin Besner, who is from the Cornwall Alliance. Cornwall Alliance is very concerned about the environment. It is an environmentally focused organization. It's not an environmentalist organization. Environmentally focused. The reason I say environmentally focused is because Calvin Besner stated its point of view fairly clearly when he appeared on the program hosted by fundamentalist reality phobe Brian Fisher from the American Family Association. And they both agreed, Brian, even though he doesn't have a PhD, that not using fossil fuels, remember 97% scientists agree, and the 3% who don't are sort of the dumb shits. They agreed, Besner and Fisher, that not using fossil fuels was an insult to God. Because he put those fossils here for a reason. And the reason was so that you could fill up your Tahoe and go to the football games. That was why God put it. One second, I got one concluding thing, and then we'll get to Q&A. When Mike and I were talking about sort of how I would approach this today, the thing I said I think I really do want to end up with is when you talk to a believer and you reveal to them for whatever reason that you are not, frequently what you'll hear is, how can you face your death, your inevitable demise, without knowing that you're going somewhere better, without believing that your life had a meaning beyond what you gave it, the material meaning that you gave it, making yourself a better person, raising moral children, being a moral person. How can you do that without the knowledge that all of it was for a reason other than yourself? And that question, first, it of course indicates, it evidences the fear that people feel toward death, which is of course normal and natural, and people answer that many different ways. But the other thing it does is it assumes that the universe owes you comfort. It assumes that just because you're born as a mammal on this planet, and you're sentient, assuming you're not a teabagger, that you're owed some kind of explanation, some reassurance that all of it was worthwhile. Well, I'm sorry. I think those of us who view reality as it is have to be able to respond by saying, the universe doesn't owe you anything. The universe doesn't owe you an explanation. You are not owed comfort. You happen to have been born. You are an animal with the capability of speech, and with life has the meaning that you give it. You can believe that there's something else to it. You can believe there's an afterlife and a creator and everything else. But what you can't believe, and what you can't argue, certainly not with evidence, is that you're owed comfort or an explanation. And that's what I have before opening it up. Sir, you had his hand.
I was just going to ask how can anybody admit there are fossil fuels if the whole idea of the age of the fossils predates the...
Right, did everybody get it? He said, how can anybody say that ask a question about fossil fuels when the age of the fossils predates the age of the planet, according to the religious fundamentalists, which, of course, they say the planet is between 6,000 and 10,000 years old, and fossils are significantly older than that. If you recall, when there was a scientific, not a scientific debate, there was a theological debate when the study of fossils really became popular. What would the religious fundamentalist response? Remember what it was? That God put the fossils there to test us. All of this evidence, again, this goes right to the heart of it, right to the main point. Reality as we wish it to be, rather than reality as it is. God put those fossils there to test our faith. And if you believe that those fossils are older than 6,000 years old, you're probably going to hell. That was the initial response. Now, I think it's evolved, ironically. There's been some natural selection in that process, but that was the initial response.
When you were talking about Dick Morris and the sort of cognitive dissonance of his knowledge of others' cognitive dissonance, and it reminded me of a phrase that we use a lot in the music industry, and as a songwriter I get this a lot as a critique from other Nashville songwriters when I complain about no success in my writing and how come people aren't buying this song and blah 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 blah. And I'm always told they don't know what they want what they know. And it just underscored that connection between what people have come to expect.
Self-reinforcing.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, okay, I can apply that in lots of arguments with arguments that I have with believers, or arguments I have with anybody in opposition to something I think I have proof for.
Right.
It's like, you don't really know what you want, but you do definitely want what you know.
Yes.
And then your conversation ends at that point.
It's comfort.
Pretty much.
It's comfort. It's reinforcement and it's comfort.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I assume that you use the term atheist in public.
Yeah, usually Jewish atheist because that's how I identify myself, but sure.
Okay, would you just kindly define that term for us if you don't mind?
Sure. I don't believe that there's any evidence to suggest that there's a God. It is the rejection of a proposition. Everybody here knows that, you know, the stamp collecting, example. I'm not a pro stamp collector. What is it? You know, it's
philatelist?
yeah.
I know it's a tough one, but people don't use it.
I can't say it.
I'm not philatelist.
The burden is not on me. I mean, maybe I'll put it in those sort of legal terms. When you go into court, there's a trial. One side has a burden, the other side doesn't. And in fact, this is actually a pretty good analogy. In the law, you've got several different types of burdens. Are there lawyers here? One? Good.
Well, recovering. I teach economics now.
Oh, you teach economics? So much better, such better use of your time. Well, there are different burdens when you go to court. Clear and convincing evidence is a very high burden, beyond a reasonable doubt, which we all know from criminal, and more likely than not. That's the civil burden. So when you go and sit on a jury, lawyers, the judge will say, is this proposition more likely than not? Is it more likely than not that this party breached a contract or committed a tort, was negligent? More likely than not. Well, if your proposition is that I have all the answers and I got those answers from a bunch of people kicking around in Israel in the Bronze Age, that's a pretty high standard, I think. I know why I'm here. I know why you're here. I know that you're not supposed to touch that. Everything else that's in the mind, I know all of that. That's a high standard. As an atheist, all I say is meet your burden. If you meet your burden, I will believe you. I don't want to go on too long about this. I had a wonderful experience on an airplane not long ago. I was sitting next to a woman who was, I think she was about 80 or so. Very sweet. She was flying. I was flying from Dallas to Houston. She was coming to visit her great-grandchildren. And we started talking. I'm being kind. She started talking. She was very nice. And she was from Big Spring, one of these towns, Big Spring, I think.
That was my mother.
Then you'll appreciate this story more than I do. We were having this conversation, and she said something that indicated to me, oh, maybe this is sort of an open-minded person. I thought maybe she'd been a Democrat. And I said, oh, well, can I just ask you, are you a Democrat or a Republican? It was appropriate in the context. And she said, oh, I'm a Republican. And I thought, okay, you know, I'm not trying to win over converts. I'm just, okay, you're a Republican. And I said, okay. And she said, you're not a Democrat, are you? I said, actually, yes. And she said, how can you like Obama with what he's doing with the gays and the Mexicans and, you know. And okay, she was very nice, and it was all coming from a very innocent place. And I said, well, for me, the issue is equality. I'm not gay, but I believe in equality for everyone, and it's a matter of law. And so I was trying to be sort of diplomatic. And then she started talking about how she's a committed Christian, and she could know her beliefs would this and that. And she asked me if I'm a Christian, and I said no. And she said, well, would you mind if I prayed for you? I said, of course not. She said, would you ever consider becoming a Christian? And I said, of course, because I would. I didn't tell her what it would take. Because I thought that might have been unkind and it was a short flight. But of course I would. All it takes is evidence. If you have all the answers to the most important questions humans have ever asked, I would love to know what they are. Because to me the important thing is asking the questions. We're never going to get satisfactory answers to all of them. But if you have them, great, you're going to save us all a lot of time. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and on the climate change, I'm real curious why these chemtrails are going all the time, all over the place.
Are you an Alex Jones listener?
No, I'm a guy who's got 20/20 eyesight almost, and I can look up and watch them doing this. I'm a guy who's seen them doing this.
Is everybody hearing the question? He wants to know why there are chemtrails. Now,
They're covering the skies of Houston, guys. If you wake up and you watch early in the morning.
Let me ask you this.
Night,
Let me ask you this.
I've watched six of them at a time do check
I understand.
and stuff.
I
This is
understand.
not BS. This is really going on.
Understood. I am open. Okay, someone asked what's a chemtrail. The white streaks you see behind airplanes?
It's a contrail.
Well, hold on. I know you said it's a contrail, but there's a contrary view. Let's do this scientifically. The assertion is that there is a secret program that is meant to poison us by having...
I don't know if it's meant to poison us. I don't know what it's for.
I'm not saying you advance the theory. I'm saying that the theory, the most
There's
common
a lot of
theory...
different theories.
You know, the most common theory about chemtrails is that they're being used to poison us just like fluoride in the water.
Well, I've heard that it was to also maybe there's some kind of radiation from the sun or a dwarf sun that's going to come back in a certain amount of time. I've heard all kinds of explanations.
Okay,
What
again.
I haven't heard is the government coming out and telling us we're doing this and what it's for.
Okay. Well, there are theories about that it, well, first that it exists, and two, what it's for.
It exists for sure.
Okay. And you say it exists for sure.
Yeah.
Are there scientists here?
Engineers. Airline engineers.
Does it exist?
No.
No.
Okay. It doesn't exist. The science is not there. I deal with this on the radio show a lot. I get a lot of these calls. I try and be respectful. But there are conspiracy theories. These are the same people that believe George Bush, as much as I disliked him, was involved in 9/11. I'm sorry, he wasn't. The evidence isn't there. If the evidence is there, again, okay. If that's what the evidence shows, that's what the evidence shows. Chemtrails is a conspiracy theory. It's yet another explanation or piece of information that people want to rely on, I think, to make themselves feel better, or in some cases feel worse about the world that they live in, to satisfy a need other than the quest for truth. Hold on. Hold on. Go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Do we have time?
I'm not
actually-
a guy that believes conspiracy theories unless there's facts to back them up, okay? I'm not a guy who believed in chemtrails, except that I've seen them 20 times doing it, okay? I'm an
We all
educated
have seen
person,
them.
and I know the difference between contrails and chemtrails. And if anybody would take the time to go look, they can see this is obviously not contrails. Contrails don't spread out and cover up the whole sky.
Is that true?
And you know what? Why on earth do we have
Scientists?
6 different planes flying across Houston, putting these patterns up there? This is not something I've seen once or
Okay,
twice.
you've had your time.
We're probably,
Thank you.
yeah, also we're probably getting a little bit.
We're over time.
I can help with it offline. I
Okay.
used to do organic and inorganic air analyses for the EPA.
Well, you're in
my
on it,
laboratory
obviously.
days.
Yeah, that's what I would suggest. Is like one of the things we try to do is we do have, like, we only have the room for a certain amount of time, but Geoff has brought up a lot of stuff to talk about, and he brought up an interesting topic, and we always like to continue the conversation afterwards. Many of us go out for lunch afterwards too, so I would encourage the conversation to continue.
Thank
So,
you. Thank you very much. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, Geoff gave us a lot. This is awesome because you gave me my topic for next week's talk. So I want to build on that question of the thing about how can you deal with your eventual demise? Because I think we have some really good answers for that, and not knowing for sure that you're going to a happy place kind of thing. So thank you so much. You gave us a lot to think about, and just really appreciate you being here, Geoff. Gabe, can you give us a closing song?
Sure.
Okay.
Don't forget to tell us your website, Gabe, and where your next show is, too.
I have a website. I got many shows. Just go to www.gabemontoya.com if I update the calendar. And I mainly play in Katy. this place called the Cellar Door. It's a winery in Katy, so if you guys like wine and alcohol and good music. What's up?
When do you usually play?
Actually, I rotate. I play every other Saturday and every other Thursday, but I play every week. So last night I played, and I'll be there on Thursday. And they have Vino Bingo. So you get to play bingo for $5, but you get a chance to win some wine. So, you guys like wine? I like the 80s, so I'm gonna stick to that theme. I love this song, so I hope you guys like it too.
notice that Gabe plays a few chords that are technically not possible? Wow, or maybe not legal. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks again both to Geoff and to Gabe for